Hello and welcome to another edition of Entertainment News with me, Michael Bates. This week marks the anniversary of the release of Star Wars The Last Jedi, and it has reignited the controversy surrounding the film. I've wanted to talk about it since its release, but have avoided it so far because I didn't want to be part of the toxic commentary that surrounded it. I need to start by apologising for whatever title this video ends up having. So far, every title I've thought of sounds like clickbait, and that isn't my intention. Cards on the table, overall I really enjoyed the film, despite its problems. There were of course things I wasn't happy with, but these were mostly small niggles. Overall, if I had to list my Star Wars favourites, this would probably be third on that list, so that shows you the esteem that I hold it in. The casino sequence is one that has sparked a lot of complaints. While I wasn't keen on some of the tone, writing and animation in that sequence, I really liked the way it contrasted Rose's opinion of everything with Finn's. He saw it as glamorous and exciting, while she saw the corruption and exploitation. When I watched the documentary, The Director and the Jedi, I was struck by the amount of work that went into the casino sequence. The number and variety of characters and prosthetics was unlike anything we've seen before in Star Wars, and the set was among the largest ever built for the series. Although the final result was disappointing, you can't fault its ambition or fail to recognise the potential there. Other scenes that have been much maligned are the milking scene and the scene where Luke casually tosses away his iconic lightsaber. To me, these scenes were whimsical and charming, harkening back to The Empire Strikes Back and Luke's first encounter with Yoda.
Put that down. Now Hey! It's my dinner!
How you get so big getting food of this kind?
Listen, friend, we didn't mean to land in that puddle, and if we could get our ship out, we would, but we can't, so why don't you just...
Not get your ship out.
Hey, get out of there!
No!
Hey, you could have broken this. Don't do that. Oh, you're making a mess. Hey.
Fine, or I will help you not.
I don't want your help. I want my lamp back. I'm gonna need it to get out of this slimy mud hole.
Mud hole? Slimy? My home this is.
R2, let him have it.
Fine.
R2! Move along, little fella. We got a lot of work to do.
No. Stay and help you, I will. Find your friend,
I'm not looking for a friend. I'm looking for a Jedi Master.
Just as Luke did in Empire, Rey, and to some extent the audience, see the Force as something sacred and powerful. Yoda and later Luke show us that it's important not to take ourselves too seriously, that the Force is something that belongs to everyone and everything. At its core, it is more to do with living in harmony with nature than in having superpowers.
What do you know about the Force?
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together.
I found The Last Jedi beautiful, interesting and surprising. All you could want from a modern Star Wars film. But with all of that said, there was one thing about The Last Jedi that did bother me, and it's something that I haven't heard being talked about. That is the idea of the suicide attack. There are 4 separate instances of suicide attacks in The Last Jedi, and I'd like to take a moment to talk about them all, individually and collectively. When the director Rian Johnson talks about the film, he often mentions themes of sacrifice, about letting go and moving on. So perhaps it could be argued that these suicide attacks are the ultimate act of self-sacrifice, characters giving their lives for the sake of others. In that context, I'd like to start by talking about the last of the 4, which is Luke's sacrifice at the end of the film. His sacrifice isn't the first of its kind in Star Wars. In fact, it can be traced all the way back to the beginning, with Obi-Wan's sacrifice in Episode 4.
You can't win, Darth. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
From what we know of the Jedi, it seems clear that the act of giving your life is just a transition from one form of the Force to another, and this can be seen multiple times over the course of the films. It is a theme that has run throughout the series.
Careful you must be when sensing the future, Anakin. The fear of loss is a path to the dark side.
I won't let these visions come true, Master Yoda.
Death is a natural part of life. Rejoice for those around you who transform into the Force. Mourn them, do not. Miss them, do not.
Here we see that death isn't something to be feared. We often see these characters returning, so although in many respects the death of Luke is the most meaningful, it's also the least consequential. It's consistent with the law that we've established. Therefore, perhaps out of the four, it is the one that doesn't fall into the same category as the others. The next is the most overt case out of the four, and that is the death of Vice Admiral Holdo. The idea of ramming the enemy in a naval or space battle can be traced back to ancient history and is used so frequently in film and TV I would categorise it as a trope.
Forward guns are down, we can't fire. Particle beams coming online for the nearest platform. Ready to fire.
Target.
North America. It'll wipe out most of the eastern seaboard. John, there's no one else close enough to stop it.
All power to engines. Give me ramming speed.
Report!
Main power's offline. We've lost shields. Our weapons are gone.
Perhaps today is a good day to die. Prepare for ramming speed!
Do me a favor. Tell my children I love them very much. Hello, boys! I'm back!
There have been cases in Star Wars where collisions have caused critical damage, but I'm not aware of a case where this was done intentionally. One thing that bothered me about this scene was that I wished we could have seen more of Admiral Holdo.
That's Admiral Holdo? Battle of Chiron Belt, Admiral Holdo?
Yonta.
Not what I expected.
But even as it stands, this is still a powerful moment, particularly with its use of sound and cinematography. Nevertheless, it has raised a lot of questions about the nature of this universe, particularly about why this isn't a strategy that's been used before. Perhaps if only one ship, the flagship, had been damaged, it would have been clear that even though it was an effective strategy in this case, it would not be viable in the long term. Her sacrifice would still have had meaning, but it wouldn't have been game-changing. Worse than this inconsistency is how it fits into the themes of the film as a whole, but I'll come back to that. The other two instances are connected as they are the beginning and end of Poe's arc. The film opens with Poe leading an attack on the First Order dreadnought and ends with him leading an attack on the First Order battering ram cannon. In both cases the resistance is outnumbered and the target is a weapon critically dangerous to them. Poe's arc in the film is shown through him ignoring orders and sacrificing his comrades in the first scene, but calling off the attack in order to save them in the second. This could have worked, but there are a few holes. I'd say it's open to interpretation, but I personally don't believe a veteran with Poe's military experience and personality would be willing to sacrifice all of those ships and crews in the opening scene. I also don't believe that General Organa wouldn't have had the will, authority and means to call off the attack herself.
You did it, Poe. Now get your squad back here so we can get out of this place.
No, General, we can do this! We have a chance to take out a dreadnought! These things are fleet killers! We can't let it get away!
Disengage now, Commander. That is an order.
Even setting those things aside, it's clear that this is the first suicide attack of the film, rather than simply being a failed attack. The scene could have been written in a way to get the same effect, but without sacrificing every bomber crew. Some could have been damaged, some could have missed. The tension would have been that much greater, and the scene that much more believable. We also don't see any of the grief that I believe would accompany such a Pyrrhic victory for the Resistance. Poe's jubilation seems particularly out of place. In the final scene on Crate, while it's true Poe has learned his lesson when he calls off the attack, there's never a point where it appears that they had any chance of success, so why did the attack even happen? The Battle of Hoth, upon which much of this battle seems to be based, has success and failure on both sides. On Crate, however, they are laughably outmatched, even after the Millennium Falcon comes to the rescue. I feel that if this mission is doomed from the start, it undermines the point that they were trying to make, since Poe should never have ordered this attack in the first place. If the battle had been more even, this could have been avoided. The real suicide attack element of this scene, though, belongs to Finn. Had Poe been the one to crash into him to prevent his death, this might have served his arc, but in the end it came down to the romantic subplot with Rose. When I realised Finn was about to purposefully crash into the cannon, I was stunned that they would go back to that well so soon after Holdo's death. This brings me back to the main point of this piece. Taken in isolation, any one of these scenes could have been powerful and a useful narrative tool, but taken together they form a disturbing pattern of behaviour. Sacrifice comes in many forms, from giving up your time, your friendship, your possessions, your work, or your freedom. I'm not saying characters in Star Wars films should never give up their lives for what they believe in, but it's possible to make this film about sacrifice without them always giving up their lives. This is the only thing I think is truly wrong with The Last Jedi. I, for one, would like to see more films like The Last Jedi. I think a flawed film that is surprising and interesting is a lot better than rehashing the films of the past. But let me know in the comments below what you think. Had you noticed the theme of suicide attacks in The Last Jedi? Was it something that bothered you? Was there something else that really bothered you about it? Or, like me, was it among some of your favourite Star Wars films?